Guy Williams, how are you, my friend?
I'm very, very good. This is so cool. It's such a privilege. Like, this is amazing. I don't know how you got me on this, but I'm stoked to be on this.
Mate, I've been a massive, so before I say I've been a massive fan, I have to admit something as well. Because you know when you think you're a massive fan, I know I am because I love your work. I love everything you do. It's like, I've been a big YouTube guy of late. Like, I've hit my YouTube phase at 31 years old.
I'm the same, man. I'm the same.
I wish when I was a kid, you know those guys at school, they're like, man, you got to get on YouTube. I was like, man, I'm too busy fucking climbing trees. I should have spent time on YouTube.
No, you shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have. Are you kidding? YouTube, you'd be rooted by now if that was the case.
Yeah, but like I used to do at school, I can't remember what the class was called, but laptop like editing. And I remember I made this video.
Laptop editing.
Laptop editing 101, I think it was called. Yeah, that was it. And it was this video of like we used to kick a footy. And we kicked it, we're running through, and I made this awesome edit. And I was like, if I stuck with that, fuck, imagine where I'd be today.
No, but
like Charlie D'Amelio or something.
No, everyone has that. Okay, I don't know who Charlie D'Amelio is.
She's the #1 TikTok dancer on TikTok.
Yeah, but is she a babe?
She's cool. She's a boss lady. Yeah. Like, she's like 18 and she's like...
Oh, yeah, okay,
TikTok.
I understand why you're not saying she's a babe now.
Yeah.
But like, anyway, okay. Everyone of our generation has that, and also being an early adopter.
Yeah.
Like, and there is times, like I definitely had a friend who started a podcast network like 10 years before podcast networks were a thing, and he gave up like 5 years in. It's like, if he just held on, he would have like a very valuable business now. And, but like, yeah, I mean, it's like that with anything. It's like, you can't linger on like what opportunities you had, especially because you didn't even know what the opportunities were. As you were climbing trees, which is a way better thing to do.
Climbing, and like trees are beautiful. We're chatting off air about this. If I wish I could knew one thing about something in depth, it would be trees.
If I wish I could knew about one thing in depth.
Right, you're going to know this from the start. My language is not a strong thing of mine.
Me neither, but I love that turn of phrase.
If I wish I could knew one thing about things, I would want to know more about trees.
You can do that.
I can. There's a book.
Yeah.
About it.
There's more than one.
There's just one.
There's one book. The big book of Aussie trees.
I feel like guys just going, why the fuck did I sit down with this bloke? Like,
No. We're cut from the same cloth. Are you I feel like we have instant like friendship potential here.
I'm really keen to be friends with you. I love your style. I saw your pants before and I asked you if you shopped at Inku, which is one of my favourite stores. You've never heard of it?
Never heard of that.
I'm
from New Zealand, mate.
Yeah, but it's you heard of the internet, right?
Yeah.
It's on that. It's like a...
I've got to get on there.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's just rewind
about the trees.
10 steps and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, even just off... Do you not feel like working in this weird like YouTube modern internet environment ruins you? Even just out there, you said to me, you go, we started talking about something really interesting and you go, actually, let's save this for the pod. And I was like, that... You know, your mind gets like rooted like that and you're like, everything becomes content and stuff like that. You'll be talking to your missus and you'll be like, hey, can I talk about this on air? You know, like I worked in commercial radio for many years and I had the same thing where just all of my life became weird, like content opportunities or like, is this a good conversation? If it is good, should we save it for content? It becomes very strange.
It's actually it's a very good point. I'm at the moment, this age of technology and like being on your phone and scrolling, there's so many times where you see something in the street, like, fuck, I'm going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
But I think there's worse things to do. I'm not too stressed on it. Like, I'm extremely grateful that like this is even a thing. That,
I'm not complaining. Yeah. I'm just saying it's an occupational hazard.
It is weird, but also like with that chat, I am wary that I normally sit in this chair for an hour with the guests, talk, then I go, oh fuck, we weren't recording that. That would have been actually alright. Like that actually would have been a pretty good pod.
Yeah. Okay. This is what I think. How many people in media, or like I work in comedy specifically, but like, you know, you're in that world as well. How many people like age well? I always look at people's like lives as they turn out. So few comedians. If you look at the number of comedians who are just fucked people later in life, whether it be Bill Cosby or Louis C.K., but then in media in general, how many people do this as a job and don't end up on some sort of like criminal registry in like 30 years' time?
You know, my background is sport, and it's a similar thing. It's like, it's almost not to do with entertainment or whatever field you're in. It's like, you almost want to say, in like quotation marks, high achieving people, to get to a certain point, you need to be somewhat fucked up in other areas.
Yeah. So like Michael Jordan is obviously so competitive to the point where it's probably like diagnosable.
Yeah.
But it's worked very well as a basketball player.
You got to work like.
But as a husband or a friend, he's probably a bit of a knob.
Yeah, and that's like there's obviously the exceptions. Like you look at like LeBron James or someone like that. I don't really follow basketball, but from all reports, stand up, dude. We don't know what's going to happen.
It is amazing as well. And people always say that. Like it's amazing that these guys, even Justin Bieber, like how well they've aged, considering how crazy LeBron James was having his high school basketball games nationally televised. Like that would just root my brain. You know, like if I was Justin Bieber. People like, his scandals were like drugs and like pissing into a bucket. I would have done so much. I would have tried to buy a country. He had a monkey. I would have tried to buy a whole aquarium. Like I would have done so much stranger things than I would have been caught having sex with a dolphin. I have no. If you had the life that Justin Bieber has had and stuff like that, it really messes you up. I think.
Well, that's still to come out.
But LeBron is messed. I think like one of the funny things about LeBron. Have you ever seen videos of him lying?
Yeah,
he loves lying.
I read that book. Yeah, that's a good book.
Yeah. And he has no details. Or he's like, I'm a huge fan of Liverpool FC.
Yeah.
He's like, I saw the game and it was a good game and it was good. And both teams, he's got to talk so vaguely about his lie. And we've all been there. We've all done that occasionally. But he does it so often on such a big... When I do it, it's like to my mum.
Yeah.
I'll be like, have I finished that book or something like that? And I'll lie to her just to make her feel better. I'll say I've got more work on than I do. But with LeBron James, he's doing it on national television. It's so funny. I love it.
I read that book. I like that book. That's one of my favorite books as well.
And all the footages of him reading books, he's always on the first page. Good on him for being honest.
Well, he's starting them.
If I was
starting the books,
I've never seen him like 20 pages in. But mate, I'm exactly the same. I can't read a book either, LeBron. So don't feel bad. I got undiagnosed ADHD. I'm on the same thing.
No.
I actually said that and regretted saying that instantly. On Wednesday, I have potentially diagnosed ADHD.
Wow.
The diagnosis is not finished, but the dude, you have to fill out a survey, like a questionnaire.
I just go on TikTok and answer the TikTok ones. Have you seen
If you're on TikTok, you definitely have ADHD. I think TikTok gives you ADHD.
No, but have you ever read those ones? And I'm sorry, I'm not making light of ADHD.
No, you got to make some light.
You got to make some light.
But
on TikTok, it's like, if you experience these 4 things you have, I'm like, Charles, I think I have fucking ADHD. Like everyone on that platform feels. But hey, talk us through it. What's the thing? What does it do?
No, well, I don't know. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
All I know is my sister has it, and so if your family members have it, you're like 50% chance. It's being overdiagnosed at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk to we're doing a documentary about it, and I went to talk to like a real boffin guy, and he was like a proper like brain scientist, concussion expert kind of guy. Not that I've had concussions, but it was interesting as I sat down with you. And looking at you right now, and you're like trying really hard to listen to me talking. I'm like, I don't know.
I'm into it, man. I'm so in. No, but
you remind me of myself.
Yeah, that's
and
really
I'm
nice.
I'm like, we've probably got similar. But you said something crazy to me out in the hallway. You said, I go, oh, my life's chaos at the moment. And you go, that's really good though, isn't it? And I was like, what is it? Oh, that's like how you shouldn't live life like
it's
chaos.
It's better than like fucking being boring. I find like when I'm in really busy times, that's when I'm actually like well.
Yeah.
Because before you
this
talk,
sounds like ADHD.
I think it is, to be honest. But before you're talking about the worries of like the internet and like living in this world of stuff. What I find actually really hard to live with at the moment is I'm someone that like I think deeply into things and like you think about shit, you like examine everything, think everything's a message, and now like you think everything's like a message from a certain way. So like for example, you're chatting to that guy about ADHD, right? And he'll have an opinion. Then you listen to some other fucking podcast and they're like, ADHD doesn't exist. Yeah. And you're like, oh, okay. Then you listen to something else and you're like, oh, there's so much information out there.
That's how the internet cooks you.
It does cook you because I'm like, I don't know what I fucking believe anymore, like about anything. Like it's just hard to like work shit out.
I think the idea there, and you've raised that's the problem with modern society, isn't it? That you can just twist the truth so easily. There are reliable sources of information. The guy I'm talking to is an expert. So even though I don't quite trust him and I'm not believing the diagnosis yet, there are like pretty accurate tests you can do.
Yeah.
But like I didn't have like boys that normally manifest like from primary school. I had no problem concentrating or getting good grades I wasn't really smart, but I was like fine all the way through schooling and stuff like that. With boys, women, it's a lot more hidden, and they only found out women could get diagnosed in like 1992. It's like quite recent.
That's crazy.
But ADHD, I think, definitely exists.
It definitely, and that was probably an example that's broader. I'm using that term, but there's other things out there that I'm saying. But I think with school, I reflect on this all the time, right? Like my schooling, I was chatting to my business partner the other day, and not proudly to say this, I'm not saying this as like a flex or anything, but I don't think, and when I say I don't think, I couldn't concentrate in anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
Like, I did not do one bit of homework ever.
Can we stop the podcast right now and just take you to a clinic and get you diagnosed? Because this is the most textbook fucking example I've ever seen.
Darcy probably knows even more. But one thing I learnt from that, which was really cool, was the art of people, relationships, going to certain people for certain things. This was my math guy. This was my humanities guy.
Yeah!
This was my... So you sort of work out like the
You're like
relationships.
delegating,
And you're like, you know what? Like, I can't learn in class, but what I will do is I'll go sit down with this bloke for fucking 30 minutes in the library and we'll just go through this.
Yeah.
I'll copy that. Then I'll get this. So I was like, you know what? I did learn something.
Yeah.
It was just not what was probably meant to be learned.
No. That's exactly what's supposed to be learned. At primary school, that's what you're learning, like interpersonal relationships. It's like people don't realize that you're getting the tools. You're not going to be a maths wizard. That's why people go, what's the point of learning maths? It's like you're learning how to learn something and you're learning if that would be something you go into in the future. Man, everything you say is so interesting. There's a lot to unpack. Can I just say this caveat? I'm not an expert in anything in ADHD or anything like that, so don't take my...
Sounds like you are.
So don't take my diagnosis as fact.
Yeah.
And as what you're just saying as well, part of the problem is so many of these podcasts are just like, I'm an idiot, right? I don't know if you're an idiot.
I am.
But like a little bit of an idiot.
Yeah.
And we just talk about things very loosely and then people take that as fact. And that's how the misinformation circle starts.
So that's my like scariest thing.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, there are experts out there, but like in the internet culture, experts don't get rewarded. No one wants an expert opinion because experts' opinions are boring, long, and they're always grey. They're not black or white. Whereas the YouTube culture is like, this is the worst athlete of all time. This is the worst Australian sports team of all time. It's like best, or this is the greatest of all time. Everything's a GOAT now. Yeah. Which of course is so annoying where they're like Messi and Ronaldo are the GOATs. No, greatest of all time. There can only be one. Yeah. You can't have multiple GOATs.
Greatest of all time is
Yeah, it annoys me so much when everyone calls themselves the GOATs, you know? I know Kanye's freaking... I love Kanye, or I don't love his recent shit, but like, I'm a big Kanye fan, and I think he's one of the greatest producers of all time, but he's not... It annoys me that his Spotify photo is now literally a GOAT. And also, he jumped on that trend way too late. Anyway,
yeah.
So I'm getting diverted. Yeah, really interesting. What you have and what you experience at school with struggling to concentrate, that could be a million different things. And it could just be that you have a different learning style and that school wasn't for you, yeah.
Well, this goes back as well to that point earlier, and like I think that you can label things, and again, this is everyone's opinion, everyone's fucking situation is so different. But speaking personally, I've found over the last sort of 5 to 10 years, the biggest thing that's been a bit of an eye-opener to the point we made earlier, on a different scale, but like I've found like my mindset for your will, whether it's like a bit of ADHD tendencies or anxiety and these sort of things, they're your worst enemy, but they're also your best friend.
Of course.
So it's just working out how, like, I don't think, I'm sort of happy. Yes, it's a fucking chaotic up here, but it sort of makes me who I am. So it's sort of, if you can live with it and it's good, it just works.
Absolutely, man. And it helps you understand yourself better. Like, that's what I got feedback from my therapist and from my doctor, and everyone was like, oh, it's dangerous, you know. Like, sure, get tested for ADHD, but don't necessarily do it as part of a documentary because, you know, like, there'll be stigma attached to that. And I was like, I'd be proud. If I have ADHD, I consider myself to be a relatively together person.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a bit of a shambles sometimes, but I'm reasonably well functioning.
Yeah.
And I would be proud to represent the ADHD community if that's what I have. I don't know if it is.
Well, again, we're harping on the ADHD, but I think when I was chatting with my therapist about things as well, I think I went through this stage when you talk about certain stuff like this and you go, hey, you aren't ADHD, you aren't anxiety, you have it's just one fucking tiny 1% of what it is. So like, don't attach your personality to it.
Of course.
Just like know that it's something that's there.
Of course. Yeah, it's interesting. And back to the misinformation topic, or like what you're talking about, like, you know, you hear one thing from one person and you hear another thing.
Yeah.
I think it's the problem with this podcast culture we're in, which we're part of right now.
Should there be licensing for podcasts, do you think? Or is it...
Yeah, get a license. Is it like... podcast license. It's just being a white guy with glasses, I think. It's just like, is that it? You don't have the glasses, so you might not qualify for a license. But No, the Joe Roganification of the world, where Joe Rogan was a pretty average comedian, an MMA fanatic and expert, and he started a podcast, again, real early adapter, got big names on and made entertaining chats, and he's always been a bit of a conspiracy theorist. And that's fine, but you've got to accept the Joe Rogan podcast as like your mates talking at a bar. When you go to a bar, you don't listen to your mates and then go back and tell everyone that this is how the world is. You go like, my mate was talking shit at the bar. And that's the issue where the lines have been blurred. On the internet, just two people just talking shit becomes like quoted as fact and held up against like genuine expert opinion as if they're equal kind of thing. And that's, I think, where we're getting a little bit off track, is that people struggle to differentiate between what is good information and what is just two people talking a bunch of shit that could be right, could be wrong, you know?
I think what I love, though, and I'm interested in your opinion on this, is like I like Joe Rogan's episodes, right? I'm not a religious listener. Like, there's some episodes where I'm like, oh, I wouldn't listen to that. Don't know who the fuck that is.
Yeah.
I really like the Mariana Van. She does Trafficked, which is like, she does these documentaries where she goes to all these places in the world, talks to gangs, talks to Tiger, trafficking, marijuana, hash, all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or I like the stories with the guy that went to the alien, in fucking, he was like in the thing. But
wait. No,
it's a number one episode he has.
Yeah. I bet it is.
It's a number one episode.
But the way I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So if you describe it as the guy who went to the alien with the thing,
well, I don't fucking know what.
No. Can you just give me a rough?
Okay. So
Tracy's what you're talking about.
I'm throwing a Darcy, but the guy, he's got it's like the most famous episode. He was working at the facility in the United States where what's that area called? Area 51.
51.
Area 51. So he basically saw, and this is going to sound so dumb now for someone who hasn't listened to it.
No. Sorry, I'm looking at you with a smirk. I'll accept it. I won't be a dick. Yeah.
His whole episode on it was about seeing basically UFOs.
Sick.
And you can imagine with Joe Rogan on that as well. It's a
Joe
documentary.
Rogan's been loving this. I do Joe Rogan's comedy long before the podcast, and he's always been really into aliens, which is cool.
So the episode's called Bob Lazar and Jeremy Corbell. They made a documentary as well on it. But Bob Lazar is a physicist who worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory in New Mexico, also on reverse engineer, extraterrestrial sort of stuff. It's fucking cool. But the point of that is, I also am not really into hunting. I don't like hunting. I don't mind UFC. I don't listen to those things. I don't really like listening to the COVID chats.
Yeah.
So there's things that I really like that he does, and there's things that I don't like that he does. But it's like, I think as a maybe race, we need to get better at going like, just because you listen to one thing doesn't mean you agree with everything that people do. Like, there's parts of people that you can like.
Of course. Of course. It's really entertaining. They have like great guests, great comedians. Yeah.
Like, I feel like you can get slammed over certain things, and it's like, I get maybe if you're super passionate about something or it is like an actual issue.
Yeah.
And forgive me if there is something out there. But
of course. I know exactly what exactly what you're saying. And 10,000 white guys on podcasts have talked about this before. But the criticism of Joe Rogan is he's got a huge platform. You should be lifting your game on misinformation.
Yeah.
And he just gets idiots on who just talk rubbish, and he doesn't challenge them enough. So he gets people on, like, very few people he'd have on are genuine experts. And some of them have very fancy degrees, but people can't differentiate. Like, for example, my mum loves Jordan Peterson. And Jordan Peterson is a very controversial academic who, in whatever his chosen field is, I can't remember if it's linguistics or what it is, he's a total expert and authority, I'm sure. But like on trans issues and stuff like that, you'd call him a TERF or transphobic, you know?
Yeah.
He's a bit of a knob and I would call him a loony. Like when he has his all meat diet and stuff like that, he does a lot of things that are very, very strange.
Yeah, I wouldn't say the all meat diet, that rattles me a bit.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not into that sort of stuff.
So anyway, any extreme diet, but anyway, so like he'll have Jordan Peterson on, and Jordan Peterson will spout some views that I would describe as like abhorrent or misogynistic, and they'll just get passed off and not challenged by Joe Rogan. So like it's like, what are you? If you're a comedy podcast, like you've got to like kind of like have, at some point you've got to have some sort of awareness of like the danger that you're doing, because young susceptible minds listen to it, they go, Jordan Peterson's in a suit and he's very authoritative, so he must be correct.
Yeah.
And Jordan Peterson is correct on a lot of things, but then he's also very incorrect man, look at me talking now.
You've got my language.
Very
Yeah,
incorrect.
Incorrect.
And there's nothing wrong with using shitty language. I was just exploiting it for a cheap laugh.
No, but I just on that point, it's fantastic, and I really appreciate you bringing that up because it's a great point to make. Like how you're saying he's an expert in something, but talking about other things, all that, vice versa.
Yeah.
One thing I love about comedians, especially yourself, I think comedians in general, and I'll talk about you because it's, I like watching your stuff, love watching your stuff, is comedians get this rap of being funny, but they're actually just really intellectual as well. Do you find would you say you're like high IQ? Because I think to be able to deliver jokes and actually talk and make jokes about sensitive things, you have to really be able to articulate what you're saying. Whereas before, just talking about what I was saying before, sometimes I find it hard to talk about certain topics because I can't articulate what I'm actually trying to say. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something I'm really interested in. For a start, I don't think IQ tests are necessarily real or something like that. I don't trust that science. I'm not sure. I could be wrong, but am I intelligent? No, I wouldn't say particularly. I was, pretty good at school, but I was at a small South Island, New Zealand school. I come from the back and beyond. In Australia, you make fun of Tasmania. Well, what is New Zealand, South Island? I come from a place that is not known for its academia. Although my school did have Ernest Rutherford, who split the atom. And then at university, I was, exposed for being a pretty solid B student, at not particularly, I wasn't doing astrophysics or epidemiology, I was doing political science, which is the most cabbage degree you can do. So I would consider myself to be slightly above average, maybe, or average, pretty average, right? And this is the problem: is that comedians, you have all day to think about shit. So you do think about things very deeply, which is really good. But it's gotten out of control now, where when people think comedians are philosophers or experts, Joe Rogan is the most powerful podcaster. It's completely out of whack. And there's so many people that their ego gets the better of them. And one of my heroes, Dave Chappelle, he's an amazing guy, and he's very intelligent, and he's taught me so many things. But on the issue of trans people, he's just a knob. And he's just often wrong and often misinformed. And he doesn't seem to put in any effort to try and educate himself, which is so disappointing because he's someone that I've idolized growing up. And what I kind of learned is that, and it's what we're talking about, is as you age, do you continue to learn and try and actually source expert opinion and good pieces of information, or do you just go down a rabbit hole talking shit with your mates on podcasts? And I feel like Dave Chappelle's done that. And I was like, I just wish he could educate himself a litk bit, read a couple of books, or talk to a couple of experts, because he has the resources to do that. I'm sure he would quickly, or slowly, I guess, change his opinions a little bit, but instead he just keeps on recording Netflix special after Netflix special. And in my mind, it's bad because it makes me lose respect for him, because I'm pretty sure that he is wrong and kind of on the wrong side of history,
Do you think, though, that he does that because he knows the outrage it's going to bring?
A little bit of that.
Because if he was doing that and, as you said, he was on the other side of history and he was going the other way, would he have Netflix specials?
Yeah.
That's I'm thinking out loud.
Yeah, I love that, because that's exactly what I try and do. I try and I'm not
saying that's right, by the way, but it's just that's
no,
what puts
absolutely.
bums on seats.
There's definitely an element of that. It's how you make money as a comedian. It's just social media as well. If you say things that are wildly wrong or wildly outrageous, you will get a lot more exposure and a lot more retweets or whatever than you would. And I definitely think it's a Netflix strategy. Every time Ricky Gervais releases a special, it's pretty standard, kind of 90s stand-up topics. He's making fun of fat people and trans people, whatever. And of course, then the Netflix PR people just find a few tweets or a few negative articles and that promotes it, because they push that out there, and it just starts a spiral. And it's people are going to be offended if you say certain things. And it's good. You got to learn. And as a comedian, I like to think I've learned a little bit. I used to say the R word a lot, the word retarded. I love that word. And I kind of learned why it was offensive and spoke to people who have been stigmatized by that word. And I was like, oh yeah, I should probably say that less. Or if I'm going to use it, make sure there's a very nuanced reason, or it's defensible. But most people would say, it's just a word that ideally you wouldn't say. No one's saying you can never say it, or it's a war on free speech. They're just saying, ideally don't say that, just like most racial slurs and stuff like that. It hurts people,
Yeah, fuck, mate, I spend most of my nights up thinking about everything I've ever done bad in my life.
Are you joking?
No, like it's a no, like not every night, but there are some nights for sure.
Good on you, man. Hey, good on you for being honest about that, man.
Yeah. Oh, mate, I've fucked up. Like I'm sure everyone has.
Everyone has, and that's what I like to embrace with my comedy as well. Go like the number of things that I've done, and I want to say it, I was like, you can come because I think people become defensive. You know what I'm saying? Like your mum gets called out for doing something a bit wrong or saying something a bit wrong one time or a little bit racist or something like that. And then your mum becomes this weird like free speech warrior being like, oh, well, you can't say anything anymore and people get too easily offended. I was like, Mum, you're easily offended. Yeah. You're just defensive, right now. And so I don't want to be that person. So I always want to show people with my comedy, I go like, I got a horrific history. When I was at primary school, we said the homophobic F word all the time, just on the soccer field, on the rugby field, playing bull rush. We'd just call someone. We didn't even know what it meant. I didn't even know if we knew it was associated with a gay slur. We just knew it was a bad word and it was a funny thing to call your mates on the pitch. And it wouldn't even be, you wouldn't call it against your enemy even. You'd call it against just someone who'd pissed you off that day. And there's so many examples of that, or like racist jokes I've made, or fatphobic jokes. And I was like, I want to show people. It's like you can go like, oh, sorry about that. You can apologize. You're not going to get cancelled, and you're going to move on with your life and improve. And that's what's frustrating, I think, about this older generation is they choose not to learn. And you're absolutely right when you say Ricky Gervais clearly just puts a couple of jokes in every special, knowing that this is going to get clicks and it's going to help them go viral. Matt Rife has a domestic violence joke, which is not acceptable so much anymore, but 10 years ago was a very popular type of joke. And it helps them. As a comedian, it helps your career, negative controversy, unfortunately, because it shouldn't be something that we're seeking out, because it makes the world a worse place and you do hurt people. Is this what this podcast is supposed to be about, by the way? Fuck, you're like, what is this chat, eh?
I was just letting you cook, bro.
I'm just cooking.
It's what you're passionate about.
It's something I'm obsessed with at the moment, because he just recently toured to New Zealand and stuff like that.
Yeah. New Zealand today.
Yeah.
So my admission.
Good gear change.
Yeah. My admission to this. Do you know, forever until today, I thought that was an actual TV station.
News show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the news.
Yeah. That's worrying. So this is what I'm just learning now, is that the levels of media literacy aren't that high. And good on you. Can I say good on you for admitting that?
Mate, I don't give a fuck. It is what it is. Yeah. I'd like to just...
And it's important. No, and as you said...
I didn't think the stories were serious. I know they're comical, but I thought that it was a segment on the news.
You thought I was just a journalist?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Because I only have just realised this now, and I've had people come up to me and go, hey man, my grandparents watched your show. They thought it was the news, and now they don't trust the news anymore and think the world's going to hell.
And I'm watching it every night going, this is a good story.
And I've had that criticism recently as well. People go, they watch my show and it makes them depressed about New Zealand or something like that, and which is a real shame, because I was hoping to have the opposite. As I said, the lesson from the show, and the lesson I always want to impart on people, is that you can apologise, you can bounce back from most things if you put the time and thought and effort into it.
Yeah. So is that the first time anyone's thought that, or you?
No. It's worryingly common. It's only just becoming. But I get it.
But do you know why though? Because a lot of the content I consumed obviously was through social media, so it's getting reshared on Facebook or Twitter and stuff. And then I've I've subscribed, and then I actually found the YouTube, and I was like, oh, this isn't a channel. This is actually what it is.
Yeah, and that's the problem with social media, right? And this is exactly what.
But it's sort of the shtick. That's sort of a funny thing, isn't it? That people actually think that.
Yeah, well, no, but on Facebook, a story from ABC News and a thing that your mate's filmed on his TikTok is given the exact same relevance.
They fucking reshare TikToks these days. Yeah, so it's hard to know.
Exactly. So it's the real problem that we face is blurring good information from bad information. And my show's not bad information. They're real stories and real people. But first and foremost, it is a light entertainment or comedy show. And when people think it's the news, I'm sorry. I'm realizing this live on air right now that I need to really make more of a distinction.
I don't think you do. I think that's the funniest part.
No, but it's bad though, because people think that on the news, they'll be trying to impart
Mate, the news is fucking worse. If yours was the news, it'd probably be a lot less people would be depressed.
Maybe,
I think I think I watched Channel 7 and I'm like, is there any fucking point of like continuing? Like this,
Yeah.
like life is so fucked.
Yeah, and again,
And I watched this and I'm like, this is fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. And I mean, I do have some stories that don't always end positively, but I like to think no matter how fucked the story is that I do, it finishes with us all hugging at the end.
Oh, mate, it's
because I believe there's good in everyone, and I don't believe that like no one can come back from nothing. If you do a murder, probably don't try and come back from that. Probably just hide away or go live in the bush or something, or go to jail or wherever you're going. But like most things, you can probably bounce back from.
Yeah.
Especially because
murder's a funny one. It depends. There's circumstances.
Yeah, it depends who you murder.
There's always context, isn't there? Like this.
Wait, what murder are you trying to defend?
Wow, like you never know, like what's happened where. It's like I don't have a case off the top of my head, but that was a joke.
That was a good joke.
Thank you. Hale's Kitchen is one of my favourites.
Hale's Kitchen, yeah.
Okay, Hale's Kitchen. This is like nearly the one that you're talking about of like everyone can come back around in full circle.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, I interviewed a guy from a big gang in New Zealand. It's a notorious gang, not a good gang. They're known as the mongrel mob, but they're a big part of New Zealand culture, and they were running a healthy eating page, which was very funny. A healthy eating Facebook page, because the mongrel mob is known for obviously violence, intimidation,
bikies
and selling drugs. Yeah. So the fact that they're trying to encourage people to fucking eat healthy is kind of ironic.
My favorite quote was "Fry your foods, not yourself."
Fry your food, not yourself. But what was interesting about that, and the reason why I thought that was worthwhile, is because I realized when I got to talking to this dude, who's a very tattered up gang member who spent years in jail for attacking another gang member and stuff like that.
Did you cut someone's thumb off? I think.
Yeah. I got on with him just like I got on with you.
Man, it was actually a really fascinating chat.
We were similar guys, similar ages, just completely different backgrounds.
Yeah.
I grew up in a privileged, wealthy town. He grew up in a poor town where joining a gang was like one of the best options. And it's kind of obvious how our paths diverge. I was like, you could probably switch us round and get the complete opposite
100%.
outcomes, And so I really learned a lot that day. And people criticized me for like humanizing them. But I was like, they are human. That's what I want to show. It's like the news too often dehumanizes people and goes, oh, this is just a figure, or this is just a random boogeyman. They're not like characters on TV who are always evil. He's just a normal dude, and his job is being in a gang. And that's not okay. And I don't endorse him doing that. But like, I do also go like, we have to look into the factors. It's not as black and white or going like, he's good, he's bad.
Mate, I did when I was playing footy back in the day. I used to do work at the Youth Justice Centre in Parkville, so just across the road, like where we were in Carlton. And I was more doing it because, to be completely honest, back then it was like be associated with something, show that you're giving back to the community. And we'd go on the day off, we'd go into the Youth Justice Centre, which is like the kids youth prison.
Yeah.
And I went in there and I was like, fuck, man, these people have never had a chance. This could have been anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone.
Yeah.
So I think once you do stuff like this, and then obviously with this fascination of the criminal world that a lot of people have, like I'm a big crime guy that I listen to, you just think like this is close. Like Darcy and I went to the Salvation Army the other day. We Nathan Buckley's on the show as a footy player. He won the BNF of our show last year. Coin Spot, our friends, they give a check of $5,000 to a charity of choice. So we went to the Salvation Army. We're chatting with like all the people there, and we're just like, this is fucking not as far away as you think it is. Like people are you're a lot closer to this, and you're a lot closer to coming back than what you think you are.
Well, I don't understand.
Of homelessness, of like of things happening, like of just on either side of the coin of it being.
Yeah. Well, you'd like to think most of us have a safety net. If it's not from the government, it's from your parents or like someone in your life who you could fall back on if things got tough.
But I'm speaking from experience. I know people close to me that you only have so many people you can like. Once you've done these,
if you're into drugs or alcohol,
or
something,
you lose a lot of couches. You can only sleep on so many.
Yeah. And if you've got serious addiction or mental health issues, which normally can go hand in hand, you can alienate yourself from your whole friend group and family
again,
group.
facts. I don't want to speak about this weird topic to be talking about, but again, you're talking about we're talking about for assault with women before, but the number one sort of thing for women to be homeless, which people don't understand, is domestic violence. Yeah. So it's either like you stay at home in domestic places, or you have to go on the street.
Yeah.
And that's what they were telling us there. I was like, fuck, didn't realise.
Yeah, it's so grim, and domestic violence. It's an interesting thing you bring up because like that's such an epidemic in New Zealand and Australia, and no one really talks about it and stuff like that. It's a tough thing. It's hidden away because there's not a lot of money in it, you know.
Yeah. Do you know what's really hard to do is talk about deep stuff and then go back to like comedy.
Nah, it's fine. It's fine. I like to think I blur those lines all the time.
Yeah.
But maybe I never go back to comedy. Maybe it's But there you go. You can always. My favorite thing to do is to talk about serious topics, but like also have a little with respect. Like you don't want to joke about certain things.
Of course.
I mean, you can, but like you don't want to upset people or anything like that with bullshit. Shitty jokes. But like you can. There's other jokes you can do around it that don't have to be specifically like punching down or something like that.
Yeah, no, like I wouldn't be. Not that I'm a comedian, but I wouldn't be making jokes about.
Yeah.
That homelessness or anything like that. One of my favourite episodes as well, if you don't mind me bringing up, is the Flat Earthers.
Yeah.
You spoke about it earlier. How do you actually find these people? More around like where do they come about? Like are you searching the internet or you got producers?
I got a director, Matt, who just like stumbled upon it. I don't know how he saw it, but then flat earthing was kind of a trendy thing, and he's like, there's got to be plenty of people in New Zealand. He got on a few forums and just started looking for people, and found a flat Earth conference was happening. So we went from there. It was like jackpot, and it was really interesting because I've become actually good friends with the woman I interviewed. And I actually feel bad for Adrian because I did hurt her with that interview. Like, she obviously is someone who I disagree with a lot of her views. I do not believe that Earth is flat, and I laugh in her face at a lot of her opinions because I think they're whack. But she's also a human being who has feelings. And, I put her on YouTube, where millions of people watch it, and a lot of the comments will be like, that lady's crazy or something like that. And I was like, I think 90% of what Adrian is a wonderful person, and it's just she has a few views that I strongly disagree with. But like I really like Adrian. And I did actually learn a valuable lesson on that one that like I can actually really hurt someone.
So how do you confront that situation? Like you're putting together a work, like you're putting together a piece of work. It's your job. You're a comedian. You're trying to make stuff, but then there's someone that's agreed to come on.
Yeah, you have to take into account what their feelings are. Well, her argument was that she didn't know I was a comedian or something like that. And I was like, Google me, motherfucker. It's on my Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But you didn't know I was a comedian, right?
I knew you were a comedian.
Oh, you knew I was a comedian. But you saw my stories.
No, I didn't think you were a journalist. I knew you were a comedian.
But you thought it was broadcast on 3 News.
I thought it was just on
the news.
On the news.
Like at the end of the news, they go like, time for a wacky story from Guy.
Yeah, I thought it was like a funny, like, I thought like that was a station.
Yeah.
And you were like doing comedy on the station.
Because there's a well-known, I mean, that is what I'm doing. It's a TV show on TV3. That's what it is.
Yeah, okay. I'm right then.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. But
I don't live in New Zealand. I don't have that channel.
Of course. Well, my concern was that a well-known New Zealand journalist, Paddy Gower, he's like kind of like a celebrity journalist almost at this point, and he actually said that he's driving his kid's soccer coach home, and I don't know how they're talking about journalism, but he goes, do you know which journalist I really like? Guy Williams. And Paddy had to go, that's not a journalist, right? That's just an idiot comedian who doesn't, have any degree or any, genuine background. And that's why it's fucked. And that's why people distrust journalists and stuff like that, is because they think I'm a journalist. They think clickbait media is journalism. They think tabloid media or, fuckwits who just go along with a fucking iPhone and to rile up an athlete as a journalist. There is real journalists out there. There's people who work for, where are we in right now? Melbourne.
Yep.
There's people who work for The Age in Melbourne who are genuine good journalists doing hard work and actual background research.
Yeah.
And there's fuckwits like me with a camera filming YouTube videos.
There's the same in anything though. There's athletes, there's amateurs, there's comedians.
Yeah,
it's just it is what it is. And I think I want to get to the point where it's I think there's a lot of things we can improve, but one is fucking take some responsibility for your own thoughts as well. Just work. But I wouldn't be getting upset if I saw you.
Yeah, but what
he's
makes
trying to be a journalist.
What makes me concerned though is that unfortunately it's all changed. You used to know that if you read this newspaper, you're getting journalism. If you're reading this newspaper, you're getting entertainment. If you're reading a fucking handout that people print out on a fucking computer on an A4 and hand it to you, it's probably not going to be reliable news.
And if you get an email from the Prince of Nigeria these days, it's not probably going to happen.
Whereas in the internet now, it's all blurred together.
Yeah.
And all I was going to say is there's a war on journalism now, where there's not much money in it. So there's a lot of bad journalism out there. There's a lot of fucking dodgy news articles on major credible news sites that have dodgy shit on them. But also like, Donald Trump just every day is attacking journalists, or like Elon Musk, and it's not helpful because there are journalists out there who are good and there's people out there who are fuckwits.
Isn't it weird now, and I suppose we are getting to that stage here as well, but in the US they say like, where's that from? Like bring it up. Or like, they hate, I don't know who Trump hates, but like CNN, or they go against each other. I will say one thing though that was really interesting. I learned a valuable lesson last week. So shit story, but I am doing this thing, it's called the Carlton Draft, where a few people go and play in like local community clubs. It's by the Carlton Draft. Footy.
Oh, I get
like you go.
You've confused me here.
Yeah.
There's a football team called Carlton.
No. Yeah, that's a team in the AFL.
Yeah, who do draft players.
They do draft players.
And they do a Carlton draft.
But then there's a beer called Carlton Draft. Different draft. Like the Carlton
like, do you
Draft.
know there's a band called Rage Against the Machine and there's a band called Rage Against?
There you go.
Why do you got to change your name?
This goes back to the business name thing we can talk about later.
Yeah, we can talk about that soon. Yeah.
This thing is called Draft, like DRA.
The beer.
Yeah, the beer.
Okay.
And anyway, there's like 6 guys were getting drafted out to local clubs around Victoria.
Yeah, they're blurring the lines between the Carlton Draft and the Carlton Draft.
No, we're getting drafted out.
We're getting drafted out, not by Carlton, by Carlton Draft.
It's a branded thing by Carlton Draft.
Carlton Draft.
But that's a draft as well.
A draft.
We're going to play local towns that are sort of like struggling, or they haven't won in 3 years.
Oh,
it's cool. So we go and do it.
Fuck yeah, that's awesome.
But the point of it is, I'm doing this PR around it, and this guy called me, and I don't know, I actually don't really give a fuck about this, but it was quite funny, and it's a valuable lesson because this had never happened to me before. And we're talking about the whole thing, like, oh, how good's it going to be, da-da-da. And long story short, I had a podcast in Melbourne, another podcast that I did with a mate, and we stopped doing it this year, just decided to go our own way, do different things. And it was a bit of a lot of people wanted to know, like, what happened, and they're always looking for something like that.
Yeah.
And he sort of said at the end of the interview, oh, mate, by the way, like, I was a big fan of List Cloggers.
Yeah.
What happened? And I was like, just thinking the interview was done. I was like, oh, mate, like, it's just finished up. Like, mutual respect. We love what best of luck to everyone, whatever's going on, like, love what he's doing. It's fantastic. Maybe one day it'll come back and da-da-da-da. I thought it was. Anyway, see you, mate. Next day, the article comes out. It goes, shock news on massive split of podcast duo. I was like, it wasn't even fucking about that. Like, it didn't even say anything. I was like, what the fuck?
See, that's not journalism.
No, but
that is called aggregation.
Yeah.
And people confuse that with journalism because it appears on news sites.
Yeah. Well, it was just like...
Sites like news.com.au do that sort of shit all the time. They read a tweet or they read a podcast interview. They grab that little bit and they know a lot of people would be Google. They would probably even look at the Google search like analytics and go, "What? A lot of people want to know why your podcast ends." And people always want juice. And I've been part of that, like radio shows and stuff that are split up. And the real answer is so boring.
It's so boring.
You're like, someone's having a kid. You just can't fit it in amongst your schedule anymore. But people always want a rift. And you can see the hell of being like it makes you like a celebrity. It's like being a part of the royal family.
And the funniest thing is, like, they've obviously got this paywall on it, so no one can actually read it. So in the comments, they're like, yeah, he fucked him over. He owes him $100,000. I'm like, mate, we don't have that money.
That's the other thing. Yeah, people think there's huge money involved. Yeah, oh, fuck. I'm sorry, bro. Yeah.
No, it was...
but it's a kind of a sign you've made it as well.
That your news.com are writing articles about.
You're like, did I guess right? Is it news.com?
It was, yeah.
Fuck, how much should I nail that?
Yeah, literally.
But like, you can see, imagine being fucking Kate Middleton and the British royal family, and who's Harry and Meghan and stuff like that. And every day there's 50 articles written about them.
The Kate Middleton,
all of which are based on nothing. They're based
fucked.
on fucking a few fucking Instagram videos. And like no information, and she even comes out and says she has cancer, and people don't even believe her. They're like, "That's a cover up for the fucking conspiracy," and they killed Princess Diana, and you're like, "What the? We've lost our fucking minds."
Yeah.
And it's like, and at this point, you have to go, and that's why it's so important. Where like you do find a news source that is reliable, that you trust, and kind of like you've got to like go a little bit like, I've got to. You don't believe everything they say, but you've got to like take that for granted and like block out the social media noise, because it's how you go insane. It's how you end up becoming a flat earther. It's like that's the tip of the iceberg. You start with Kate Middleton doesn't have cancer, she's covering up an affair. Oh, why is she covering up an affair? To protect the royal family. It's being repeated by this group. Why did this group also killed Princess Diana? Why did they kill Princess Diana? Because she was getting too much limelight. Why was she getting too much limelight? She's going to tell the truth about the Illuminati. Yeah. Who's the Illuminati? It's the Pope in a lizard suit. Why is the Pope in a lizard suit? Because he controls the government. Why does he control the government? To hide the ice wall around the world that's been guarded by NASA because the world is flat. And that's what I learned that day. And that's what's so interesting about the flat earther, is that all the conspiracy theories lead up to the flat earth. That's the top.
Yeah, right. So that's the number one.
If you believe that, you believe everything below it. So you're like, oh, the shooting that happened is a cover-up for the fucking false flag. And it's really fascinating. You can see how it happens, because we all have some conspiracy theories we believe. We all read about JFK and we go, that's pretty weird, you know? But then you just start spiraling off, and people like the Joe Rogan podcast like push it. And that's why a lot of us are quite cooked now, I think, and a huge factor.
I'm going to ask you a question you're going to hate then. Is there any conspiracy theories that you do believe?
Fuck yeah.
Which ones?
Fuck yeah. I believe that the NBA does a lot of dodgy things in terms of like covering up the gambling crisis they had, and they'll probably have another one. They've got a new one breaking now.
What? Because, were you talking about historically?
Yeah, historically.
That's all the loan shark stuff is. Oh, you mean like cheating in games and stuff?
Yeah, they had a ref who was match fixing. They Tim Donaghy was.
That was on Netflix, I think.
And he's a very strange man.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell, but they just basically decided it was one ref. And even though there's other refs that he's collaborated with and given thousands of phone calls to after every game, he's calling these guys. Those refs were found completely unguilty. So, you know. Unguilty? Yeah. I declare you unguilty. The Patrick Ewing draft, like when famous players come into the draft and they pull out the magic one. I do believe the NBA has slightly rigged things, and for good reason. It was awesome LeBron James went to Cleveland, It was awesome that Patrick Ewing went to New York. It was like, it's sports, who cares? When you get into politics, you get into dangerous territory. I can't think of any off the top of my head that I strongly believe, but there are.
You know what's a weird one, and this is such a fucking weird topic to bring up, but the Epstein in jail. Who killed him? That's what I'm trying to work out. But
also what, because people are like, oh, he might have been killed by someone else. He might have paid someone to kill him and stuff like that.
Yeah,
bro, I love how we
never know what's gonna happen.
We're in classic Joe Rogan territory here.
I know.
Flop it out, and but here's the thing.
It's fun.
Conspiracy theories are so fun.
Fun, man.
So fun. But
it's more like
most of them are stupid. Yeah. But there's a few that are good, and that's the annoying thing is there's real conspiracies. We're all obsessed with Epstein. There's probably real Epsteins out there right now that we're ignoring because we're all just doing the Epstein podcast and stuff like that. The other one is there's huge conspiracies around petrol companies and chemical companies covering up climate change. But, hiding the information they know, hiding the impacts of it, silencing whistleblowers, suppressing information. But we don't focus on that. We're like, no, the real conspiracy theories are that climate change, the whole thing is a hoax. It's like we're doing pro-oil company conspiracy theories. The conspiracy theorists are doing so much work and they're often barking up the wrong trees, Yeah, it's like there is a lot of conspiracies out there. There's a lot of problems out there, but the ones we're focusing on, not the real ones. It's fucking a nightmare. So I don't want to
it's a good point. It's a good point.
But there's definitely things that's 9/11. There are huge conspiracies around that. How'd they end up invading fucking Iraq based on a country, and not Saudi Arabia where a lot of the people were from? There's so many interesting things like that. Can we just put allegedly on everything I've said on this fucking podcast?
We might have to burn this one.
But it's just a really interesting thing. But people are still focused on 9/11 being a controlled demolition, and you're like, there's a lot of dodgy things about 9/11. I don't think that's one of them. I don't think Bush orchestrated it. But, did Bush do a lot of dodgy things? Fuck yes, he did,
Yeah, it's crazy, man.
Anyway.
It's really good. Again, not to harp on conspiracy theories, and we will put allegedly before everything, but this is it, man. Two white guys just talking shit about
Yeah, just sharing our views.
Oh, do you want to talk about the business names?
Oh, yeah. No, you want to talk about the business names, so I want to talk about it.
It's fucking shit. Don't worry about the business names. I'll tell you guys later
No. It was an interesting thing that Dyl was saying before. He's like, one thing I'm obsessed with at the moment, and you brought this up out of nowhere, but you're like, it's interesting you say it. You know when people segue into something they want to talk about?
Yeah.
One thing that came out of Dyl, as soon as I met him, I've met this guy for the first time.
34 seconds.
Trying to make an impression. He's like, one thing about me, I'm obsessed with buying business names. I'm like, what are you talking about? That's so cool. That's such an interesting like obsession. Good on you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's not, it's a good thing that you're happy with it.
Can you tell me what your like? What do you do it late at night, or do you do it here in the office?
It's something that like my brain's always ticking about, like what's the next thing.
Yeah.
So like even just with the evolution of everything, and I just like, I'm really big on clean Instagram handles, clean websites, clean business names. So like when I see, like Nike, for example, I'm like, that was good. Or, I see like something that looks good. I'm like,
Dyl.
Yeah.
Nike, that was good.
Well, no,
Yeah,
probably
I get what you mean.
aged well, but like at the time that would have been like, that's shit. But
They've nailed it.
Yeah, they've nailed it. So I like just thinking of names, really.
Yeah.
But we're doing, as I said before to you out there, like we're doing this apparel brand off Clubby Sports, which is our sort of podcast network, and just sort of playing around with a few things there. But I love the world of like, I don't know, websites, domains.
Yeah,
and it's so weird now with everything, as we were saying before, but .com's nearly irrelevant. Whereas like 4 years ago, I paid for a .com, and I was like, now it's probably worth nothing because you can do .anything.
Are all these businesses you're coming up with? No, but still, if someone had it, you come up with businesses connected to your business?
Yeah. They're not just. I'm not just stealing names of other
I'd love
people.
it was like, if you're like, do you know what a great company name would be? Aussie Meat Butcher. And you go patent that.
Nah, I don't do that.
No one knows less about business than me.
No. It's not. It's even like when I say it, it's more like I just like having names to be optionable, and Instagram accounts. I like having good Instagram accounts.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Can I just say one of the things I've
interest.
known about you is you have some of the best Instagram accounts that I know.
You haven't seen them all, but I will show you after this. I've got too many.
Do you need like a Google Sheets like to keep in track of like all the domains and fucking websites?
I have that. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Can I ask something about you? You just said this said around business, but one thing I'm actually really interested in is the business of a comedian.
Yeah.
So like, if you do, take this wherever you like, but obviously like there's stand up, there's, New Zealand Today, your show, there's touring, like where are the sort of, what's the word?
I'm a bad person to ask because
Verticals.
Pardon?
Verticals. Where are the what are the verticals of you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Verticals is like, it's a word that I heard on a podcast once. It's like explains just different parts of what you do and who you are and how you do it.
I find it cringe being a comedian talking about because it's like the people from the Joe Rogan podcast world, all those Burt Kreischer guys talking about how rich they are. I'm just a New Zealand comedian, so I'm not rich or
and I wasn't even really meaning it about financial or money, but it's like more just how it works. Like how does it? Like how do you? Yeah, I suppose it is about that.
Normally,
then, isn't it?
in comedy, to put it briefly, you try and do things. Podcast, television, whatever, to get an audience who can make money doing live shows.
Yeah.
And that's how you make, I'd say most comedians make most of their money unless they're a big TV or radio star. And that's why you notice, like, obviously in Australia there's huge money in commercial radio, so you'll notice there's like almost every radio show has a comedian on them, or a lot of podcasts, a comedian hosted or something like that. But generally you push towards stand-up unless you've got like a really lucrative deal.
Yeah. Shit question.
No,
it's fucking shit. I hated it.
You're doing a joke, eh?
Yeah.
Because I worry, because one of the most interesting things that came out of this chat is you're talking about like anxiety late at night.
Yeah.
And
I'll be up. I won't sleep tonight.
No, are you doing a joke again? You're blurring. This is what men do.
I'm half serious.
Can I say you've been totally fine? You should feel bad about nothing you've said in this interview, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, thank you. And it's also a part of me though too that I'm like, no, well, fuck. Don't feel bad, like. Dude,
that's the thing. People overcompensate by going,
yeah,
you can say anything and anything's fine. It's all okay.
Yeah.
But also, men have that, or people in general have that fear of like cancel culture, which is not real. If you fuck up, it'll be fine. You're welcome to say. You could come out another podcast and go, hey, I got this a bit wrong. Sorry about that. But you could also listen back to it and like you could fact check yourself, or you could hire someone. But I totally
sounds like a lot of work.
What?
Yes.
But no, that's what you need to do. That's what a journalist would do.
Yeah.
Okay, can I say this? This is important. I just think it's good that you were honest about that, because dudes aren't. And dudes love to be like, I don't give a fuck what anyone thinks. When someone says they don't give a fuck what anyone thinks, they are so obviously lying.
Oh, man.
Everyone cares. And the more someone says they don't give a fuck, the more they do.
Yeah.
The reason I think Dave Chappelle, this is me doing home fucking psychology, the reason Dave Chappelle doesn't fuck up about trans people is because he did one trans joke probably 10 years ago. He upset a few people and got a few articles, and he's spiraled on that so heavily that he's gone down this fucking rabbit hole the other way. He's like, not only am I not upset by that, I'm going to fucking prove to you by like doubling down, tripling down, quadrupling down. And he's like, bro, you could have just gone, hey, sorry about that. I didn't know the community I was affecting and didn't understand the issue. And it's like so annoying when people decide to go the other way and go, I don't give a fuck. I don't care what, I say whatever I want, because most of the people who brand themselves that way are very sensitive. And I think you'll find the most sensitive people generally that I've met in my career are comedians and like radio hosts and podcasts. Those people are sensitive. Accountants, fucking room cleaners, normal people who live normal lives are pretty tough and pretty hearty. Trans people are tough as fucking nails. But comedians, we're the kind of people that have the time, and you, podcast hosts, are the people that have the time to ruminate about this bullshit and get in their own head about it, you know?
It's a really good point. I think that you're so right. I still think, though, that the point, I think there's a mix of why I don't know much about what Chappelle does and his skits. I'm not familiar with a lot of them. I actually don't watch a lot of Dave Chappelle, just purely because I've never seen it. But I think he does that to grow bigger because he knows that people are going to watch it.
I do think he's down a rabbit hole. He's done stuff that aren't even comedy.
Yeah, right.
He released on Netflix a special where he just talks to school kids about the things he's been through. He thinks he's a victim. But I get it. He does also use it to
and this is really dangerous as well because I don't know what I'm talking about in this.
Can I also say that I love Dave Chappelle. He's one of my favourite comedians. I just think on the trans thing, he's lost his mind and he's hurting his legacy.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say, tell us about the tour coming up. Can we come?
I'm in Melbourne all month. Of course, I'd love you to come.
Yeah.
Come on a Friday or Saturday. Come when it's banging.
I'm actually thinking we should...
I'll give you free tickets.
No, man, I will buy tickets.
Nah, I'll give you free tickets.
Okay.
The only benefits to being mates with me is I can occasionally give you a free ticket to one of my shitty gigs.
I would love to. So
I'm at the Melbourne Comedy Festival for this whole month. I'm also doing Sydney and Brisbane and Auckland and Wellington. But Melbourne's the big daddy. 22 fucking shows, man. It's a lot of sick tickets to sell.
It's a lot of fucking shows.
And I mean, I think it's funny. I think I've got some funny gags. I think I touch on some. I think I punch up. I think I punch down. I think I punch around. But it's hopefully a good time. The show's called. It's about like what we're talking about actually. It's called This Glass House Makes It Easy to See All the Cowards I'm Throwing Rocks At. And it's what we've been talking about, man. It's like, I take shots at things. I am a vulnerable human being. I realize that I'm a hypocrite as well. I'm in a glass house. I'm not perfect. I like fuck up all the time. And I think that's the message that I put out into the world is like, you can be both things. You can be offensive and also regretful. You can be ruthless and also like thoughtful, you know, like, and that's what I aspire to be. Whether I achieve that or not, you have to buy a ticket and find out.
I like that. Man, I actually like what you said then. I feel like I'd like to adopt that for myself.
Oh, that was a very sweet thing to say. And genuinely, it's such an honour to come on this podcast. I realise I'm not very well known in Australia. So
mate.
I appreciate you coming here and listening to my bullshit.
Oh, I thought you were a journalist.
Fucking good call.
Fucking hell, man.
You're a professional. That was a great callback to finish the pod.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much, mate. I really appreciate it. We're going to have the link to the tickets in the bio, guys, so make sure you get in. Hey, it's selling fast as well. I'm looking at it now. New shows added. I'm going on... we're going to go on Friday night.
Let's do it.
I don't know if I'll take you.
No, that's good.
You're not that funny.
I'll go separate.
Might take someone else.
No, anyone who wants a ticket from the office is welcome to come.
There you go, guys.
I'm
Anyone who's
despo.
listening to this show, it's free tickets.
I mean, don't tempt me. I would probably do that.
No, don't. We'll get there. Mate, thank you again. This is I hope it's the start of something cool.
Yeah.
I didn't mention as well. I wanted to but you're a tall guy. How tall are you? 6'6"?
I'm 6'7".
204.
2 meters.
2 meters. Do you think that you're handsome tall or weird tall?
Weird tall.
Yeah, I was going to say
Fuck
that.
yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, it's fair. It's fair.